says that we're streaming live, so we should be good.
I just got notified that yes, indeed, we are streaming live.
Oh, right. Good job.
All right.
And there's no theme music for council meetings. We have to work on that, but
All right.
we could play a dirge. Never mind. Your call is very important to us. We'll be with you.
I love it, Molly. I love it. Thank you.
Why am I frozen?
You're not.
Okay. Hate not being centered. Oh, I see. This is Facebook here. I don't need to see Facebook. Well, I didn't charge the other tablet that I have because this is always work. Can you restart it?
I just shut it off and turned it back
Okay.
on. Just keep sitting there. Just hit the Zoom button. Unless
Yeah. Oh, yes. It finally got finalized about 3:30, 4 o'clock this afternoon.
I didn't look at it after that.
Under other council matters, we're doing a reconsideration. And under, Transportation Committee added an ordinance for,
Overtime.
overtime. Thank you. Oh, that's what you said, overtime. No, we're just going back and amending the ordinance that passed for transferring funds from last meeting for the purchase. Yes, because we don't have an old business category. Then you speak during the beginning of the meeting. Yeah, you can at other council, at community comments. No. Not unless council says it's okay.
will you let me into this one?
I just let everybody in that done. What did you do? Did restarting it help?
No, I had to connect to a different Wi-Fi. It was connected to something, I don't even know what it was connecting to, so I connected it to the Dinosaur Wi-Fi, the free one. I didn't do the Dinosaur.
Oh my God, I am emailing John in Michigan tomorrow. Thank you, sir. I think I only have one guest tonight. No, two. Oh, that's good. That was Catwalk by Chris Sandring from his Soul Express album.
We make USAA insurance for veterans like Liz and Mike.
That was nice. I like that.
Yeah, so
they'll love it. I think they'll grow home on it.
Where are we getting that feedback on?
I did for years.
I have to shut my off when we start the meeting.
Just talking in the opening, right?
As far as,
Okay.
you don't get 3 minutes at the beginning and 3 minutes some other time.
Okay.
And this is not a conversation with people. If you have something to say, you say it at the beginning. They want to ask me questions, bring you in.
Okay.
They can.
I'll help them get through that, and then I'll run up and start working, and I'll watch the feed in case we go down again. Which one?
We are not.
Which we are not.
Jinx, we are not. That is not happening today.
What happened to the music? Thank you.
Exactly, we can't hear you. So.
Probably be like an intro too if we're gonna play the music. Like, while you wait, please listen to this tune while you wait for your favorite council member.
Before you know it, it'll be like a baseball game. Everybody will have their own walk-up music or something to start things off.
Do we get a 7th inning stretch?
Only if the meeting goes as long as the last one.
Yeah, I seriously want some Cracker Jacks too.
Hot dogs.
Nah, I had one. Wasn't that great?
You haven't had a hot dog until you had a Dodger dog.
Something
And I
about
haven't
hot
had
dog
one.
at a baseball park. There's something about it.
Yep. Hey, I had one when the Reds were playing the Dodgers out in Dodger Stadium, and they ended up pulling it out.
The Reds have discount tickets for those who got their COVID shot.
I could sit at home and watch them lose.
No, they haven't lost every game this year.
It's not
Not
the
every-
All-Star break yet.
It's not about the win or lose. It's about the enjoyment of the game.
I'm sorry, if I'm driving an hour and a half to Cincinnati or an hour, depending on how I'm driving, I am not going to watch somebody get their head bashed in just to drive back an hour later.
Oh, I think it's fun.
I've been driving for over 30 years to see the Bengals, Stacy.
Exactly. Me too. And the Reds.
Well, y'all should get y'all's money back.
Hey, don't start now, Stacy. Let's have a great meeting tonight. Don't start.
Hey, I'm just telling
you
the
can join
truth.
me and Lou and be Pittsburgh fans.
You know what? You could turn off your camera.
Okay.
Hey, look, I'm a Browns fan and an Indians fan, so you got to go for the enjoyment
Exactly.
because it's not
Hey,
wins.
well, I'm a Browns fan too, but I got tired of driving up there for the enjoyment just to drive back 2.5 hours later after seeing them get their heads bashed in. So once again, I could sit at home and do it. Save me money.
Bengals fans have Joe Burrow coming back, so it should be a pretty good season.
Yeah, how
think-
many games is he gonna be able to stand straight up? He
Well,
ain't
if they
got
get
no
him an
offensive
offensive line that'll protect him, maybe he will last the whole season.
You know as well as I do.
We're
the
gonna
Browns-
do it this year. We're
The
gonna
Mike
make
Brown family is cheap. They ain't
NFL.
gonna pay for an offensive line. You know
Well,
That
that.
sports talks right here live at Reynoldsburg City Council as we transition to the next thing.
Madam President, all council members are in attendance.
Great. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Reynoldsburg City Council meeting for April 26, 2021 to order. The time is now 6:32. I'm Council President Angie Jenkins. This meeting is being held virtually and live streamed on the City of Reynoldsburg Government Facebook page. Molly, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Strickland,
present.
Councilmember Salvati,
Here.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Here.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Here.
Councilmember Cotner,
Here.
Councilmember Baker,
Here.
and Councilmember Bryant,
Here.
and President Jenkins.
Here. Next, we'll have the approval of the agenda. There were changes that were made to this agenda for this evening that were made this afternoon that were sent to council and to all staff. The website and email link were also updated. Are there any other changes that need to be made to the most current agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is approved as submitted. Next, we'll have the approval of minutes. Approval of the City Council regular meeting minutes of April 12, 2021. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, the minutes stand approved as submitted. Next, we'll have community comments. The community comments portion of the meeting is an opportunity for citizens to address council. Citizens may bring matters to the attention of the City Council or discuss items on the agenda with the exception of legislation that is scheduled for a public hearing. Comments related to a public hearing may only be made during the public hearing portion of the meeting. The council president will invite speakers to be recognized, give their name and their address. All remarks should be addressed to council as a whole and not exceed 3 minutes. Molly, do we have any comments from the community?
Yes, we do. We have Mr. Luzader here. And Madam President, please mark your agenda that following the mayor's comments, there will be a presentation from the Military Committee and the Transportation Committee.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Luzader?
Thank you, President Jenkins, members of council. A couple things I just wanted to address, and one of them is the sidewalk program. Partially was approved last week and then again this week. While I agree with the premise of the sidewalk program, I don't think the timing is correct. We still have people that are out of work, people that are suffering from this pandemic. They can't afford to make their house payments. They can't afford to pay their rent, different things like that. And now we're going to go repair their sidewalks and tell them they have to pay for it or either be assessed on their taxes. I think that's an undue hardship being placed on some of our residents. A couple other questions I have is we're trying to do sidewalks on the streets that we are working on at the present time or in the future. One of the streets we're working on right now is Main Street. Now I know it's a state project going from city corp to city corp, but there's probably more sidewalk missing on Main Street than there is any other portion of the city. Are we going to put sidewalk in out east on Main Street, particularly make the state ag lab and the fire academy and everybody else put in thousands of feet of sidewalk? If we're going to make our own residents do it, I think we should make everybody do it. Another question is Wagner Road. When we upgrade Wagner Road, are we going to put in sidewalk and assess all those people? different questions like that need to be addressed before things go a lot further, or these people need to know ahead of time so that they're not surprised. And that's what I've got to say about the sidewalk program. I wanted to address this next issue when it comes up, because you're going to look at the purchase of the Happy Dragon again. There's some questions I have about it. And one of them is the environmental study. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Boucher said all the environmental studies were done. But in the agenda that was just revised, it was pulled asking for the $30,000 for a phase 2 environmental study. Well, in a report that was sent by EMH&T dated March the 26th on that very property for the phase 1 environmental site study, their opinion on page 25 of this study says, and I quote, based on the historical use of the subject property as a gasoline service station and auto repair shop, EMH&T recommends that a limited phase 2 ESA be conducted to identify any potential residual subsurface contamination that could impact future development activities. Now, it seems to me this should have been brought to your attention before any votes were taken to buy that piece of property. Because if this phase 2 study shows some things that limits what can be developed on there, we should know it. That's all I've got to say. Somebody needs to make sure that they get this information ahead of time. I don't think you're getting the whole story.
Thank you. Molly, do we have any other comments from the community?
No, there are no further residents in council chambers, nor did I receive any written correspondence of comments.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from anyone on council? Do we have any comments from Mayor Begany?
Of course, Madam President, you know me. Madam President, members of council, I do have a number of comments to go over today. First of all, I would like to thank all of you who participated on council as well as community members in 2 activities this past weekend: a litter cleanup organized by Councilman Boone Paccarel and Councilman Louis Salvati at the Taylor in Maine Kroger this weekend, where they picked up a good number of bags of trash. Kind of gives a whole new perspective of what people throw away in the area around the grocery store. Also would like to thank all of you that participated in the planting at Pine Quarry Park earlier
Military
in
is-
that day. So more is needed,
doing
obviously,
that.
so we
Okay.
appreciate any help with that. Also, members of council, you'll be getting your invitations to be volunteered for the Tomato Festival in the not too distant future, because plans are moving forward with that. I do have some good preliminary news to share with you this evening. One of the grants that was presented to you probably, I want to say maybe 2 months ago, Director Boucher and Director Bauman can probably help out on the exact timing. We did get some preliminary information back that we are going to be awarded about $258,000 in change for the stream restoration project that's located on Blacklick Creek behind the YMCA to deal with some of the major erosion factors. The city will have a share that will have to be picked up for that. And I know Auditor Sisak is eagerly awaiting to figure out where the money is coming from in that particular one. But the city share, we were actually awarded, again, $258,000 in change. The city share will actually come up to $430,051. That actually is going to be something that's going to be compensated through the America Recovers Act. I did get some late word today that some of the money that will be coming to the city of Reynoldsburg will also be able to be used for park as well as infrastructure improvements. So there'll be more on that information later. You'll also get this information to confirm whether or not council accepts and moves forward with this progress as soon as we get the more detailed information in from the grant. But just to give you an idea, we applied for this same grant in 2018. And at that point in time, the total cost of the project, mind you, was around $378,000. So in just 3 short years, the amount of damage, the amount of erosion has impacted it to the point that this now total cost is actually going to be well above $600,000. So you can see that there is a huge amount of difference into the stream erosion in this area. The city share at that time $94,000. This time, obviously, it's significantly higher, so there are more environmental concerns specific to that. But again, I will encourage council to move with that once we get all the information in, and that information will be to you as soon as the grant applications information is brought to us. Kind of on a related topic, later this evening, you will be required or asked to vote on Star Consultants. You remember they presented a while ago. Tonight is the third read of Star Consultants in assessment of our needs at our service building on Main Street, as well as our parks and water facilities off Turo. You will hear that tonight. If passed, 30 days from now, they'll begin their assessment. That'll approximately take about 90 days, give or take a few. After that, they're going to present internally here to us and then to council about what their findings are. And that's where the process will begin in a different way. They may recommend that we improve the sites as they are at each separate location. They will also have the opportunity to say if we should consolidate either at the Turo site, or more likely if they consolidate, will be at the Main Street facility. And it's at that point in time that we'll have discussions about what will happen with the property if indeed we do consolidate and leave the area around Turo. We're in very preliminary discussions in that topic. Some developers have reached out for that potential in that area, but we're just way too early in the process to kind of go into detail about what's going on, mostly because we don't know what the assessment's going to say. For all we know, the assessment is going to say improve the facilities as they are, and then we move on from there. But wanted to put that out there for you. And other related park news, Civic Park is going to be hosting Councilwoman Strickland and myself on May 22nd from 1 to 3. And again, other people are welcome to join to take a walk in Civic Park to kind of talk about potential improvements. As I mentioned earlier, the America Recovers Act looks to be able to allow for some funding to be used for park improvements. We know that we had talked about park improvements at Civic Park and as really last year, even during COVID. And I think most of us do appreciate how important our park systems are, especially when that seemed to be one of the few things that we could do just a year ago. So I look forward to everybody coming out and kind of seeing what's there, getting some feedback from members of the community, members of council, and to figure out exactly what's going to go in there based on some of the preliminary information that the Parks Department and I have kind of collaborated with. The last piece of news is actually some pretty good news. I know Auditor Sisak and I were kind of taken aback a little bit, but we did get our revenue numbers in for the month of April, and for the first time. And again, you know, we're still awaiting to make sure that these numbers are final, but usually they're pretty consistent. Reynoldsburg actually had its first $4 million revenue month in the history of the city of Reynoldsburg in April. For those of you that are unaware at home, I guess you could say Reynoldsburg gets their deposits twice a month, usually the first of the month and then the 15th of the month. And so this time we actually were able to blow past the previous record of about 3.8, I believe, to go to a 4.2 million. Now, in small terms, what that means is that locally, it seems that there are some good income tax revenue coming into the city, despite some of the challenges that are out there that they're well aware of. But also, let's look at historically. This obviously puts us well ahead of the pace of the 2020 year. In 2020, we were actually about $3 million less in overall funding. I think we had approximately, I think my figures were about 11.2 million this year at the same time, where last year it was around 8.5. So we're significantly ahead revenue-wise from last year. So from an economic standpoint, from the city's perspective, things are seemingly moving to recover. That doesn't mean that everyone is recovering, and those are things that we're going to be talking about as we move forward. But what's also interesting to note that if you go back to 2019, we're actually outpacing 2019, the pre-COVID numbers as well. If those numbers hold up, I think Stephen and I will probably be dancing at some point in time later on in the year as well. A lot of things will be going on there. But again, it's a small picture right now coming through just the first 4 months of the year, but a lot of progress has been made with that. And I'll have some comments for Mr. Luzader about some of those issues as those topics come up later in the evening. With that, I do thank you for your time. And Madam President, I turn the floor to you, unless there are any questions.
So is your song you're going to dance with going to be Just Dance by David Bowie?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure we can come up with something. Maybe I'll let Molly pick the music. She had good taste earlier this evening.
Madam President, may I ask a question to our mayor?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So good evening. Mayor Begnaud, you mentioned about the this month alone, we had a revenue of $4 million. Can you talk about what contribute to that to that 4 million. Is there anything in particular that stood out to you regarding that?
I think there's a couple of things that kind of jump out. One, I think what we're starting to see right now is some of our early investments in our joint economic development deals with Etna Township seem to be coming online in a better way now than they had in the past. You're looking at some of those facilities starting to generate revenue. We know the Kohl's facility has opened up and are hiring. So I think that's part of it. The rest of it is typical issues that you're seeing in the economy in general, that some of the businesses that drive the economic forces here in Reynoldsburg seem to have not recovered completely, but are doing better now than they had been in the past. And that is what is added to it. There's other potential things. And again, as we get more information and the numbers are broken down, it could be anything from people purchasing stock that through the limited when they were working at L Brands, maybe they sold some of their stock off before it had, and they had tax issues with that. They kind of helped spur on some of that economic growth all the way across. But definitely it's something that I'm keeping track of on a monthly basis to make sure that we are living within our means, but then also the hope is that we will not only exceed, what our expected revenue is for this year, but significantly exceed, which will be better overall for providing better services to the community as we move forward.
Thank you, Mayor.
Are there any other questions or comments? Mayor Begany, would you please introduce our two guests that we have this evening?
Absolutely. I am thrilled. This is a little bit of a delay from the last time. I think for our guests, they were lucky enough to not be here at the last meeting with the marathon session that I think just ended 20 minutes ago. But we do have two members of our community commissions coming here this evening. We have our Military Recognition Committee with Renisha Springer, who will be joining us and talking about things related to that, as well as you saw earlier, Brett Luzader will be talking about the Traffic and Transportation Committee. These two groups have dedicated a lot of time outside of their daily lives to try and bring something special to each one of their facilities. The Military Recognition Group, again, is one of those that it's probably the smallest group we have, but by far they are the most dedicated and active on email and trying to get things coordinated as we move forward. So I present Renisha Springer to you, everyone. Thank you very much. And again, Renisha, it's nice to see you.
Hi, good to see you as well. So good evening, everyone. I am the committee chair for the Military Commission, and I did put together a PowerPoint presentation if for those of you that need a visual. But I'm also a talker, so I'm happy to spill the beans as well. Mayor, if I could share, that would be great, though.
This one is not my control. I do believe that.
Madam.
All right, you can
Madam
go
Council
ahead.
President, am I able to share?
You can go ahead.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I've got so much saved on my desktop, which is normally a no-no for me. All right. So we're actually going to be gearing up for Memorial Day. The agenda will be closed out very, very soon. I'm just waiting to hear back from several of the parties that we've reached out to join us on that day. But we've kind of landed on a draft, and I'll be working with George to publish something a little bit more formal outside of this PowerPoint presentation with the flag for each of our, for each service of the military, but something a little bit more formal we'll have that day. But leading up to this, just for the military, the Memorial Day ceremony, this is what the agenda is that we have. I'm trying to make sure that I know I have the other PowerPoint presentation. This is my work desktop. So I've been working, I came on here with you guys kind of last minute. Here it is. Stephen is also a part of the group along with George Musey, and I have several other members that kind of work with me to pull together everything. But just to introduce the committee members, myself as the chair, Stephen Sizek, George Musey, and then Doug Joseph. I believe we have another member that's going to be joining us by the name of Kelly. I'm not good with last names, so charge it to my, don't charge it to my heart, but charge it to my brain. Events last year, I kind of came on towards the end of the summer, and things were kind of crazy, kind of adjusting being as a part of the committee, but we were able to successfully pull off the Veterans Day event. It was so good to meet all of the council members that kind of came out and supported us on that day. And we had a brief ceremony honoring our veterans on that day. My husband was actually able to join us. He's pictured in the second photo with the jeans on, as well as the Army jacket. So it was good to kind of have the community come out and support us. That was the first event that we were able to do. In the first photo, you can see our council members present. And it was a phenomenal day. Everything worked out great. And the rain held back until we were done. Upcoming events, as I stated before, we have the Memorial Day ceremony that's going to be held on 5/31. I'm actually working with JROTC. I am a alumni of the JROTC at James Fort Rose High School in Cleveland. So I spent 4 years in ROTC as a high school student. And so when I started to think of pulling together the Memorial Day ceremony, I thought it would be important to try to work with a ROTC to do a presentation of the colors. And so it would be a great partnership to have them join us. And then in the future, when we have military events and we need a presentation of the colors, we'll be able to do that. So just extending the partnership out. Also, something I want to start doing is looking at local business owners here that are veterans, and potentially I'm looking for recommendations. I know the mayor does his Wednesday show, and it would be great if somewhere in there we can partner with him to kind of highlight a veteran. Part of building the economy here is actually going out to support businesses. I'm a huge, I'm an entrepreneur myself, along with working during the day, but I also believe in going out in the community and supporting local owned businesses. And so recognizing those businesses can allow us to go out and support them. I've seen Meredith also kind of post sometimes when she's been to small businesses here. And so just a great way to support our veterans. Oftentimes, when I look for services to be done to my home, I specifically look for veteran-owned organizations, being the wife of a veteran, just to show that support and that loyalty. Looking at doing an Independence Day potentially ceremony, I have to talk to the mayor, see if he wants us to do something along with that. Just not quite sure yet, but I'll see what he says and then we'll go from there. And then of course, we'll do the Veterans Day event again this year. I look forward to it. Having the time to kind of plan ahead will allow us to potentially do a little bit more versus, a short brief, what we had last year. But I do think overall, all in all, things have been great so far. Any questions before I move on to the last slide? And then for the military commission, always looking to add on to the numbers. I've kind of reached out to some folks locally in the community that want to be involved. I think it would be great to have a veteran's voice, be a part of some of the planning that we have, even when we're looking at doing the Memorial Park, just determining, where we put the flag display. Or George has been sending me different things as he's traveled. I've traveled as well recently to Florida and came across a beautiful area where they recognize the military. So just looking for ideas as we continuously build out that park. So if anyone knows anyone that would like to get involved, or any of our council members have a little bit of time, you can reach out to Jessica and, she'll get you the details to join us. But I'm looking forward to working with each of you. If you have any ideas, just let me know. I'm open to ideas on how to improve the committee and also bring things forward in our community so that we have a presence. Any questions?
Madam President, may I?
Yes, Councilwoman Strickland.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you, Chairwoman Springer. I really appreciate your service to our community. When I asked the mayor last year regarding starting this commission, right? And one of the things that I wanted to do is make sure that not necessarily the elected officials get involved, but really having our community members be the voice, right? And so I just want to commend you for being the chairwoman moving forward as this particular commission. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you are doing for us. So thank you.
And I'd like to thank you as well, because the first time I had the opportunity to meet you was at the Veterans Day event. And so it was great to have you out there, and supportive and I kind of felt awkward at first, but you made me feel at home. She was very, very nice to me, very friendly, as well as our council president and several of the other members, Meredith as well. So it's great to have the support of the community, and we have those events and have our council members actually come out and be present. So I look forward to working with you all moving forward and the continued support. So thank you as well.
Thank you.
Madam President, I just want to say thank you and the committee for your time and effort for putting this together. It's a wonderful presentation, and I really do look forward to all the events and everything that y'all suggested to the council. So thank you.
I believe Renisha is being a little bit more bashful about some of the accomplishments of the group, but I know that these are not the only things that are planned as we move forward. There are a number of other initiatives as well. We're also investigating working with a group called the Purple Heart Group, but we'll have some information on that as we kind of move forward, as well as more formalized invitations for our Memorial Day ceremony.
And I've actually been able to connect with the Wounded Warriors Project. I'm just waiting till I renew some of my affiliate stuff to go back and make those connections, because they remind you every time that you need to renew your affiliate stuff. So once I get that underway, we'll kind of start moving forward. But I look forward to the partnerships that we're able to build out in the community and support the organizations that support our military.
Thank you very much again for everything.
You
If
as
there
well.
are no other questions,
Have a comment and just to send my kudos to Chairwoman Springer. Just thank you for your dedication and your passion to serving with our military and being that support that it's so easy to see this is your passion and this is your calling because you make it look so effortless. And so I appreciate all that you're doing and look forward to hearing more good stuff.
Thank you.
There was something that
the team.
something that popped in my head, and it might be able to do it or might not. Like, you know how they had the Rolling Thunder in honor of the troop. Maybe we could do like a small one here in Reynoldsburg or something, because that's an awesome. If you haven't had a chance to look, you go and experience that. It's an awesome experience for those who've never been to Rolling Thunder. But
it is.
Maybe we could have our own little Rolling Thunder here. Just something that popped in my head.
Mayor, did you write that down in the notes?
I did. Yep.
Well, thank you all. I have another meeting, so thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Briefly, before we get to Mr. Luzader, I was reminded we are actually having a COVID-19 vaccine clinic tomorrow at the Senior Center. For those of you that would like more information of that who are watching at home, you can go check out our website. There should be something on our Facebook page as well to get registered for that. I know that there are plenty of openings for tomorrow, but please reach out as quick as possible. Now, this next committee, Mr. Luzader is obviously well-versed in the traffic and transportation issues that have been facing Reynoldsburg for a long time. So he has taken it upon himself, along with a very robust group, to get together and come up with potential recommendations and suggestions. And I know that Mr. Dorman has been kept well aware of some of those things. Just kind of a little bit of a forward, while a lot of the conversation typically surrounded Priestley Drive, what it's kind of been established, and I hope I'm not stepping on Mr. Luzader's toes too much, is the idea that whatever we come up with Priestley Drive will be used as a template for kind of addressing some of the other issues that are affecting other roads throughout Reynoldsburg in terms of speeding and stop signs or the lack of stopping at stop signs. With that, I do appreciate Mr. Luzader and his group, so I'll turn it over.
Thank you, Mayor, President Jenkins, members of council. One of the first things I'd like to do is wish Council Member Strickland a happy birthday. Wanted to do that earlier and I forgot.
Thank you.
As the mayor said, we've been meeting off and on with the mayor and by ourselves as a group. We probably have one of the largest commissions. We have 10, 11, 12 members at different times. We've lost a few, picked up a few. We've got 4 main topics that I'd really like to touch on. And like the mayor said, I will save the best for last, which is Priestley, speeding, stop signs, things like that. One of the first things that we initially discussed was the possibility of roundabouts in the city. Now, I know a lot of people don't like roundabouts. I love them personally. I think it helps keep traffic moving and different things like that. We discussed a roundabout at 256 and Livingston down to 5 Point, which that has been discussed a number of years with different engineers and different things. There are actually 2 different drawings out there. I don't know if you folks have seen them yet or not, but there are 2 different drawings, 2 different designs. The one we thought would be the most feasible would be one that looked kind of like a peanut. But after talking with the city engineer, we basically came to the conclusion that that probably would still not be the best intersection to try to do that. We discussed having a roundabout at Taylor and Main, a roundabout possibly at Palmer and Taylor, which I know that's not in the city, but we were going to talk to the township trustees and different things like that if we felt it was feasible. We even briefly touched on the possibility of a roundabout at Priestley and Wagner with the city's redesign and everything else of Wagner Road. The engineer didn't think that we would be able to obtain enough right of way out there to do that. And we recently touched on the possibility of a roundabout either out at Summit and Main or somewhere close to where the new development is going to be out on Main Street. That's going to be an ongoing discussion for the future. But to bluntly put it, we've come to the conclusion that roundabouts probably will not work in the city at the present time. I think that is basically because a lot of the folks in town just don't like them. Like I said, I love them myself. I think it eliminates a lot of rear end collisions, side impacts. You have glancing blows, but you don't have the big property damage and injury accidents. The second thing that we've been discussing is CODA's rapid transit system. Now, we have one of our members that sits in on a lot of the CODA board meetings and different things like that, so he's kept us up. And the mayor could probably let you guys know a little bit more about that, because I know the mayor, Mr. Bowsher, Mr. Dorman have been meeting with CODA on different things like that to try to get them out here and all the way out to Summit to try to get folks out to the new developments out and different things like that. So I won't go into that a lot. Like I said, the mayor and Mr. Dorman can probably give you a little bit more information on it. The other thing we've been discussing is one of the things that you are discussing at the present time, sidewalks and bike paths. We would like to make the city more walkable, more bike friendly, different things like that. Everybody's concerned about the environment. If we can get more people walking, more people biking, take cars off the road, it'd be better for everyone. We know there are numbers of places in the city that don't have sidewalks. Graham Road, Wagner Road, particularly. Out east on Main Street, you can't walk from Taylor Road to come into the old part of town if you want to. We're putting millions of dollars into the old part of town. You can't walk there without walking in the street, or at least on the side of the street. So these are just some things that we've been discussing, see if we can come up with some ideas to try to get the city more walkable and more bikeable. The big one that we've been discussing, and the mayor touched on it, is speeding, stop signs, traffic control. And the biggest one that we have been working on, every meeting we have probably takes up the largest portion of our meetings, is Priestley Drive. Anyone that's been around for any length of time knows that Priestley Drive has been a thorn in each of the last 3 administrations. There are a lot of stop signs, there are a lot of curves. People tend to drive through there, I want to say, at high rates of speed on a regular basis. I'm not sure if that is justified or not to say, but it is a concern of the residents. Some of the things that we've been talking about are speed bumps, speed humps, raised intersections, center islands, narrowing the street, whether it be pulling into curbs, which I don't think is really feasible. It's going to be way too expensive. And also putting down edge lines to give the perception that the road is a little bit narrower to make people want to go a little bit slower. We've also been discussing LED stop signs, LED speed limit signs, larger stop signs, just to change the people's perceptions. If you can get into their minds and say, what's different? You know, if we put a bigger stop sign up, they may have a tendency to look and say something's different, and they'll stop. But I think what it's going to boil down to is enforcement. It seems people just do not care anymore. And we need to change that perception. I'm not sure exactly how we do that, but if you've got any ideas, you've got any problems in other areas of the city, in your wards, different things like that, please let us know so we can at least discuss them, see if we can come up with some ideas to try to help. Because as the mayor said, some of the things that we want to try to do on Priestley, if they are successful, then we're hoping to transfer them to other parts of the city that there may be problems in. So again, if you've got any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. Other than that, that's pretty much my presentation for this evening.
Madam President, may I ask a question? I'm assuming yes.
All right, yes, I was just trying to get unmuted and answering the chat question. Go ahead, yes, Councilwoman Strickland, please.
Thank you. So first of all, Mr. Luzader, thank you for the birthday shout outs. I really appreciate that. And also thank you for being the chairman over the Transportation Committee. So thank you so much. I do have a question. You did make a statement regarding the roundabouts and maybe 256, you know, that intersection may not be the right place. However, do you know of any suburbs close to our size that have roundabouts that maybe in specific areas around the city that, you know, they're rear end or side impact, you know, danger to each other or, you know, cars? Do you know of any suburb of our size that went to a roundabout? You know,
I know they have some in Hilliard. They have some in Dublin. They have some down in Obeds, which are not as big as us. And even in Dublin particular, they have one street that they have tried a number of the different things that I talked about. They've put in islands, they've put in bump outs, different things like that, all in one street, just to get an idea of what may work. And I think the mayor has that street. And if not, I'm sure that the city engineer, Ryan Andrews, still has it, that he could forward to you, and you could go look at those streets and get an idea of some of the different things we've been talking about. But yeah, there are a number of different cities that have roundabouts in there inside their city limits.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I'm just talking about, you know, some of those places that's similar to our size. But thank you for that. I don't mind the roundabouts. I like the roundabouts. It seems, again, keep traffic moving along. And so we have to, you know, think about technology or a way to move easier across the city as we continue to grow. So I just don't want to say, you know, throwing it out as an option. And maybe, you know, now it's not an option right now, but as we continue to grow, how can we start implementing and thinking about these things for our city?
Well, I know the EPA loves them. I don't know how you feel about the EPA, but they love them.
One of the big issues for our city is the way that we have the way that it is laid out between you know, the main street and the broad street, and then the connectors in between severely limits the amount of roundabouts we can have in those particular locations. I do think Mr. Luzader mentioned some of the potential for a roundabout use out east towards the Department of Agriculture with the new development that will be going out there. I think that's probably going to be the prime location for that to happen. And we actually are going to be meeting with the developer in the coming weeks to start planning out some of those issues. When we looked at specifically for the five-way, we actually tried to track down what's the nearest five-way intersection that had a roundabout. And I believe it was in somewhere in Indiana. I want to say Terre Haute or something along those lines, or Valparaiso or something along those lines. We actually did reach out to the city and had some conversations, and in their official responses, they said that it seems to be working well. In some of the phone call conversations, it seemed to be more of a like Mr. Luzader said, you reduce the number of T-bone accidents, you reduce the number of head-on collisions, but the side scrapes and things of that nature were very difficult just because of the fact of where it was in there. I tend to view the world in a lot of movie terms, and if you've ever seen the movie National Lampoon's European Vacation, there's a scene where they're all kind of stuck going in a circle multiple times for an entire, because they can't find a way to get over. That would probably be the most accurate given the number of entrances and exits and the distance between those things in that area. But I'll make sure and get all the information that we've had out there in the past for it. And then obviously as things move forward, we'll get some good conversation. I know Mr. Dorman's on the line. Mr. Dorman, are you there? All right, maybe he's trying to get on his mute right now, but I know. There you are.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. If you just want to catch us up a little bit on a couple of things that we are going to be doing with Priestley that hopefully we'll get to kind of get some things going in that direction.
Yeah, so on Priestley, as we've talked about that on several occasions, looked at options like traffic calming circles, what they call little parklets or bump outs at the intersection. Mr. Luzader brought some really great points about doing edge lines, even planting trees, anything that kind of, some things will just give the perception of you're calming the street by creating it. It appears to be narrow. It's almost like an optical illusion when actually the street profile and the staying the same. Right now, we do currently have some LED stop signs on order. Unfortunately, with COVID, everything's kind of backlogged, but we do anticipate them being in any week now, and we are going to be putting those up. We always talk about speed bumps, speed tables. Unfortunately, when it comes to snow plowing and medical runs, they unfortunately are not great. They wreak havoc on the plows, and for EMS, they really make the response time, longer. School buses too, traffic for trash trucks too. But we are looking at all those options. We're trying to start with some of the basic ones. We're working with the police department too, in regarding self-stat data and collecting that, and seeing what the real perception is that's going on out there. I mean, a lot of times, as Mr. Luzader said, you're out there and you're watching it, and it seems like someone may be going 15 or 20 miles an hour over, but maybe they're only doing 5 to 8, and what's a really enforceable ticket and what's not. But I know they've increased their presence out there as well.
So we'll continue to do that. Again, for those of you that are out there that want to, participate in the Transportation and Traffic Commission, please feel free again and reach out to Jessica, my assistant, who helps coordinate all the different coordinated groups when they have their committee meetings and their larger meetings. I was just informed that maybe my microphone is presenting a little bit of feedback. So for that, I do apologize. I'll try and make some adjustments on the fly. Thank you, Mr. Luzader. We appreciate your efforts this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Just one quick one. Since we were talking about roundabouts, was there any look at the Livingston and Bryce area for possibly one, seeing how that is a very busy area, and there are numerous crashes that happen there too. So since we're talking about Taylor and Maine, Taylor and Summit and Maine, that could be one area that we could possibly look at as well.
I'll add that to the list.
So in a quick moment, I'll just say that I recently listened to a podcast. There's a city, I believe, in Indiana that has, I think, 10% of the roundabouts in all of the United States in one small town in Indiana.
Carmel.
They're quite a major fan of roundabouts, and they love them. I'll try and get a hold of that podcast. I think it might have been Freakonomics or something like that, but I'll put it out there in case anybody wants to see it. It's pretty interesting. I'm a big fan of roundabouts.
Thank you. Do we have any other communications this evening? Next, we'll move on to our motions. A motion to approve a resolution supporting the Protection of the Right to Organize Act, which provides generalization opportunities for working class Americans. Councilmember Bryant, please read this resolution.
Thank you, Clerk Prasher. Let's see. A motion to approve a resolution supporting the Protection of the Right to Organize Act, which provides generational opportunities for working class Americans. Whereas inequality has skyrocketed due to the failure of policymakers to pass pro-worker labor laws and properly administer the National Labor Relations Act of 1935, which has been dismantled for several decades to make it more difficult for workers to form unions. And whereas the PRO Act is the most significant worker empowerment legislation since the Great Depression, as it stands to give workers a free and fair choice on whether to form a union, ensure workers can reach their first contract quickly after a union is recognized, and employers' practice of punishing striking workers by hiring permanent replacements, and hold corporations accountable with real penalties for illegally retaliating against workers who organize. And whereas the PRO Act will help America's economy work for working people and help raise stagnant wages that have only increased a mere 9% from 1973 to 2013, while productivity has increased 74% over that time period. And whereas wage stagnation and runaway inequality of political, social, and economic power have undermined the public's faith in our democracy, and whereas through the expansion of collective bargaining under the PRO Act, there will be increases in pay and protections for women, people of color, immigrants, and the LGBTQ community in areas where our non-discrimination laws are still falling short. And whereas American workers will be by far the biggest beneficiary of making the PRO Act the law of the land, increasing worker power and rebuilding our economy fairly for all of us. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Reynoldsburg, the PRO Act stands to greatly increase economic opportunity in America and empower workers through the promotion and expansion of collective bargaining. This council supports the passage of the PRO Act and encourages the state of Ohio and the United States Congress to support the same or similar legislation to protect and support all American workers, passed this 26th day of April 2021.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from anyone on council? May I have a motion to approve this resolution?
Moved.
Councilmember Pacquiao, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe? Is there any further discussion?
Madam President, we have Mr. Mark Fluharty with us tonight. He's representing the AFL-CIO and happens to be a Reynoldsburg rep. Mark, I see you're on here. You want to unmute?
I would love to. First of all, let me say good evening, everybody, and thanks for this opportunity. And thanks for your support of working men and women in our community. I could go on and on and on about why we need a PRO Act, but I want to just give a couple of highlights. Working people who come together in a union can bargain for higher wages, actually 11.2% more than what non-union workers make. Union members also are more likely to have employer-paid health insurance, 94% to 68%, access to paid sick days, 91% to 73%, retirement benefits, life insurance, 82 to 48%, and guaranteed pensions, 54% to 8%. What we've seen in the pandemic is a highlight on the essential worker that has carried the country and how important they are to our economy and to our country. The PRO Act is much needed. It's long overdue. We have had no labor law reform in the United States since 1947. It's the last time that Congress took up labor law, and that actually was detrimental to workers. We have had no real interaction since 1983 when Ronald Reagan fired the air traffic controllers in PATCO. It is time for workers to be treated fairly and to come first. And I commend all of you and thank you for your support of this important legislation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fluharty, for coming and being a part of council today.
I appreciate the opportunity, everybody.
Is there any other discussion?
I have a question. Are there some businesses in town that we're seeing that are non-friendly to labor challenges, struggles, something we're seeing that needs improved here in Reynoldsburg?
It's something that needs improved everywhere. If wages aren't improving since 1973 and they've only gone up 9% while inflation skyrockets, absolutely it affects all of us.
Yeah, I'm just saying though that the resolutions about supporting unionization, and again, I know, we've got several unions in the community and quite a few active members in their unions and organizations that are doing well. And again, I'm not, saying we have problems there. I just kind of wondered just again what we were looking at, if there was some issues in some companies that are challenging to workers in this community. And I know as a city, we make sure that our workers are treated fairly, our police, again, just kind of wondered what kind of we were looking at here within the city of Reynoldsburg to see improvements in as well.
Do we have any other comments?
I want to make a comment. Being in a union household, unions help make everyday life better because you're able to fight for a living wage. You're able to fight to be able to provide for your family. I mean, people have died for the right to unionize. I mean, look at some of the historical stories about union busting and people getting shot because they were fighting for a better life. I mean, here in Reynoldsburg, look at the school teacher strike a few years ago. They were fighting and striking for better pay for the work that they do. And I have no issue with this because it shows that we are providing, that we are in solidarity with those who want to have a better life for their families and for themselves. So I just had to get that off my chest. And thank you, Madam President, for letting me speak.
I'm sure Councilmember Cotner, you remember when the city workers tried to unionize some time ago. That's the most recent example that I can think of in addition to what Councilmember Baker mentioned in regard to the teacher's strike.
Oh yeah, anybody that's been around remembers the strike well and impacted my family, every member of my family very directly. So very, very familiar with it and very supportive of our teachers. And again, the unions that we've got within the community of our police. And if our workers are working to unionize, I support their right to make that vote. I think that's their prerogative, that's their right. And we as a community can work to support what's best for the workers. I have no problem with that at all. So, and again, sadly, Mr. Baker bringing up the strikes, it's like pulling off Band-Aids. Every time somebody hears it, kind of their skin cringes here. And we know the pain and the struggles that teachers, families, students, everybody went through with that.
Yeah, I was just bringing up a most recent incident that dealt with unions and for better pay and for better benefits. So
it wasn't about pay; it was about students, and it was about the connection in there and class sizes, and it was multi-level. They weren't out there just trying to get dollars. That's for sure.
Agree.
Is there any other further discussion?
Just a statement. So thank you, Mark, for coming out and speaking. And this is important for all of us. And thank you for being the voice for many, many other workers in our community.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks again for inviting me. And just one quick comment for Councilman Cotner. I appreciate your support for the working men and women of Reynoldsburg, because I most certainly do. All we're asking is for them to be able to, join a union freely and fairly. That's really what we're after.
Thank you. And again, the workers that choose to unionize, I support. I have no problem at all. I think again, we have a tremendous amount of essential workers doing incredible things. And that part I am 100% behind. And I'm thankful that we have representation and that they are strong, and that our police unions and the teachers, again, I think we have a lot of wonderful people working hard. So that part I agree 100% with you on. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
The motion carries 6-1. Thank you, everyone, for the vote, and thank you, Mark, for coming and speaking about the PRO Act. Next,
Thanks
we
again,
have.
everybody.
You're welcome. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to our reports. The Clerk of Court report, Molly.
The Clerk of Court submitted monies collected from that courts held on March 4th, March 11th, March 18th, and March 25th for a total of $20,367.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Police Department give our first quarter report of 2021.
Thank you, Madam President and members of council. Our Q1 offenses were pretty consistent with 2020, so we're not really concerned about it. We did have a slight increase in domestic violence and assault, but other than that, considering the things that were going on in the Columbus region, it was nothing out of the ordinary for us to see. The other thing I would like to draw your attention to is our team did a great job helping solve a cold case from September 28th, 1974. I believe we're going to be on 48 Hours as a feature. I don't have the date for that, but it was for, the victim was named Lori Nesson, and she was from the Eastmore area of the east side of Columbus. So that was a really great thing. And then the other thing that you know about is the donation that we got for our K-9 unit from Friends of Revolution Mortgage, Essential Title, and Access Title, and that was very generous. But that pretty much is a summary of the report. If you have any questions, I can take them. Yes, sir.
Not a question, more a comment. Wanted to let everybody know who's watching to thank Chief Baker and Deputy Chief Grizel for taking some time to meet with members of council to kind of go into some of this information in detail. Obviously, things are not easy for police officers in this community, and the show of support that the community has shown for our officers and for council who has shown our officers is great. So I look forward to hearing some reports from the Citizens Police Academy with our review board. I'm not going to steal anybody's thunder on that one, but a great opportunity out there for everyone. So I do appreciate it. We're going to try and review these numbers quarterly to make sure everybody's aware of it. So again, those questions, please look through those packets if you have additional questions, or if there are other areas that you'd like us to look into, please let us know. Again, we're all working together for the same purpose. And again, thank you all for everything you've been able to do for us this year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we relish our relationship with council and with the support from the mayor's office, and very much value our relationships with the community. And we look forward to growing all of those. So thank you very much.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
All right. So the two things. First of all, about that cold case, I think that's so important that we highlight it a little bit. It was there in the Facebook. I read about it. I heard about it. I think in the next meeting, you might want to come and tell a little bit more details about it so that community knows about it. I think that's very important how our police are working behind the scene. I think that's a positive thing that needs to go out. And I appreciate everything that you do in the community, and want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Madam President, may I make a statement, please?
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you, Deputy Chief, and also a huge thanks to Chief Baker. People don't really see all the hard work you all do on the back end. I appreciate the relationship that you are putting forth with City Council. We're having those meetings, those quarterly meetings, to let us know what's going on. So again, I just want to say thank you publicly to let you know that you guys do a dynamic job, a hardworking job, being out here in the community and putting your lives on the line every day. But thank you so much for that collaboration and also building that relationship with City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You're absolutely right. It's all about relationships, and we very much value that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Thank you.
I too also appreciate the meeting with us and providing updates and talking about the crime that's happening in Reynoldsburg and on the borders of Reynoldsburg and Columbus. It's very good to know exactly what's going on in your community and the numbers and if they're going up or down. So it's very important, and I appreciate meeting with all of us and giving us those updates. The cold case, that's very exciting. I'd like to know if you hear about when it's going to be televised. I'd like to see that. I do watch a lot of those cases, and you get dragged into it and you keep watching and watching and watching. At least I do. Keep watching those stories. So I'm very excited about that. I used to work with the Attorney General's office, and they had shown how cold cases were solved years ago. Also with, they had a woman that presented how she had put together the face of the person that they were looking for and how they solved some of those cases. So I'm very interested in knowing about that. So if you do, or if anyone hears about it, please let us know so that we can let the community know as well that it's going to be televised. So that's very exciting to know. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Lieutenant Early was the direct contact with 48 Hours. So I will definitely ask him, and I will send the mayor an email in the morning, and he can make sure you all know that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, I have a comment and a question. Thank you, Deputy Chief. I wondered if it's appropriate for you to share the partnership that the RPD has with, is it Starfish?
Oh, absolutely.
And before you go there,
okay,
to share that. And then two, could you also share about Operation 614? And as I have said in the past, RPD will be the #1 police department in Central Ohio. And these are two examples of why.
we are the #1 police department in Central Ohio. We're just telling everybody now, right?
I needed someone to say that. Yes, thank you.
All right. At least we're striving to be everything that we can be for the people that live here, work here, and then for the people that are representing us. So Starfish Assignment Licking County is a second chapter of Starfish Assignment Franklin County. It's a completely independent entity. It's a 501c3. And basically what they do is take referrals directly from officers on the street with citizens and residents who are in need, whatever that is. And I'll give you an example. If a person is experiencing domestic violence and may need some assistance, or if a family member is, seriously ill or something like that, and there's something that the officer sees that may assist that family, maybe a mother who doesn't have money for formula, they can immediately provide that formula for that family. And then this will actually work seamlessly with our new social worker position, because we can refer that person to the social worker then for a more long-term solution. But they can definitely provide an immediate solution for us. You may remember, or you may have heard a few months ago that a husband passed away and left 2 children and a wife, and he had a bunch of projects that he was kind of in the middle of. And Officer Shams went on the scene that day when he experienced his health emergency. And Starfish Assignment took that on to help finish some of the projects. So Officer Shams, Officer Marshall, and Officer King actually replaced her storm door with donations from the community, from Lowe's. And then True Road Township Fire Department and RPD and Starfish Assignment are going to be replacing and repairing her back fence. And that's all been donated by Lowe's. And that's going to be starting in the middle of May, I believe May 16th. So that's Starfish Assignment LC. It's a fantastic way to build relationships in the community. And it provides an avenue for officers to bridge that gap for someone who's in an emergency situation. And we love it. we're looking forward to growing it. We're also going to be doing books and badges next school year. It's their literacy initiative, and it'll put officers in elementary classrooms to read books to children, and each of them gets a signed copy of that book. So it's a really cool program. We're really looking forward to that. And then Operation 614 was in partnership with the Ohio Attorney General's Office and the Central Ohio Human Trafficking Task Force. We particularly tried to focus on working the supply side of prostitution. So we essentially placed ads and had officers responding to those ads. And then when the person showed up, we made an arrest for soliciting for prostitution. And we want to eradicate that in our community because of all of the things that it brings with it, with that crime. The exploitation, the drug abuse, and human trafficking is something that we won't stand for. And I know that Mayor Begany and Attorney Shook share that point of view as well. And they have some more surprises for you a little bit later in the agenda today. So I'm very happy that you asked about that. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments before we move on to our liquor permits? Okay, we'll move on to our next report is our liquor permits.
Okay, this application is for a liquor permit transfer from GP Main Street. It's also called the Easy Through. It's at 6785 East Main Street, and they're going to transfer it to Everest Carryout LLC. It's located right at Rose Hill in Maine, and the new owner is, I apologize if I don't pronounce this properly, Ishore Badarai. The permit is a C1, C2 class and is for beer, wine, and mixed beverages in sealed containers for carryout only. The business is not located situated in an area that would have an adverse effect on the operation of any hospital, schools, or playgrounds. It is an existing business. So we recommend we do not request a hearing. We have no objections.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you for that report.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next, we'll move on to our next report, which is West Licking Joint Fire District Report. Councilmember Baker.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll be brief. The report is attached to your agendas are the numbers for the month of April, and it shows that we're still getting extraordinary service from our fire station, and the West Licking Fire Department is doing an absolutely marvelous job all over West Licking County. So I just wanted to share the numbers and share how many runs and compare to other fire stations within the district and the times that it takes for West Licking Joint Fire to get to somebody's residence or business, wherever the issue may be. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you. There is no Development, Parks and Recreation Committee meeting this evening. We'll move on to Public Safety, Law and Courts Committee. Councilmember Bryant.
Thank you, President Jenkins. This is the Public Safety, Law and Courts Committee meeting for April 26, 2021. Members in attendance are Councilmember Cotner, Councilmember Peccarell, Councilmember Lawson Rowe, myself, and President Jenkins. Item number 1 is an ordinance authorizing the city auditor to remove equipment from the city's fixed asset list for the police department. Deputy Chief, do you have anything to add on this?
Thank you, ma'am. Most of this is either old technology or no longer in use. The only thing that is going to be auctioned off is our pepper ball system. It's just old technology and it has no value. So they're going to be, I'm sorry, the old technology items have no value and would be destroyed. The pepper ball system was replaced with new technology and is going to be auctioned off and credit it and give us a credit advances. The radar and LiDAR items are no longer functional.
I assume those will be destroyed as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation? Any from council? All right, I move that we forward this ordinance to council for first reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Council Member Lawson Rowe. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for a first reading. Next item on the agenda is an ordinance to repeal section 533.08 of the codified ordinances of the city of Reynoldsburg and replace with a new section 533.08 entitled Sexual Exploitation. Mayor Begany.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson Bryant. I just have a few brief comments for this. Wanted to kind of set the stage a little about how this all happened. Each week, either the chief or the deputy chief draws a short straw and has to spend about an hour with me discussing issues related to the police department. In this particular instance, Deputy Chief Grisel happened to be there. And in the course of our very good conversations, we came across some issues with human trafficking because she was letting me know about what ultimately became Operation 614. And was going to be proceeding in the not too distant future. And we got into the discussion about some of the issues that can be used to better attack human trafficking. Thank you again, Deputy Chief, for not ruining all my story when I was talking about this. But kind of going after the demand side as opposed to the supply side. And with that, the more conversations we had, she had referenced some legislation that was potentially going to go through in the city of Columbus, and would I be interested? And I jumped on the opportunity. With that, City Attorney Shook can jump in, and he'll be able to go through more of the details if you have questions about the specific nature of everything. But Reynoldsburg, unfortunately, has had a history with human trafficking. Former council member Cornelius McGrady, who is a champion of human trafficking awareness in Reynoldsburg, to the point where he's worked obviously with Senator Portman, and then now Attorney General Dave Yost, has done great work bringing awareness to those issues, specifically in communities like ours in Reynoldsburg that you normally wouldn't think would be an area of concern. But as we learned through this process, at least I've learned over the last few years, is there really is no area where it's not a concern. It hits every area, every demographic, every stratosphere all the way across. And I'm proud to work and support this legislation to kind of attack it from a different perspective, and I think a more appropriate way, going after those that are demanding the services that are provided by human trafficking and sexual trafficking victims. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to City Attorney Shook to kind of briefly go through the legislation.
Thank you, Mayor Begany. Yeah, I'm going to echo the mayor's thoughts on this item of legislation. Obviously, it's a timely piece considering Operation 614. We are developing a reputation as a city where this kind of activity is not welcome. And the participants in the activity are becoming more and more aware of that. I do want to give a special recognition here to Assistant City Attorney Darren Least, who recently joined the city over the last couple of months. And this is his first item of legislation that he has drafted for the city. And so I want to give him that credit, and I want to give him the opportunity to speak to the specifics. And with that, I'll turn it over to Darren.
Thank you, Chris. I am very pleased to have had the opportunity to work on this this legislation and this ordinance, and certainly agree with the sentiments. These changes to the city ordinance, particularly 53308 to repeal and replace, is for the purpose of changing and enhancing the penalties associated with. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. I apologize. I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm here with my son. My other child has a baseball game, and as luck would have it, the pizza literally just arrived. So I apologize, but timing is everything. But I want to get back to this issue. These changes that we're making to the ordinances in the city of Reynoldsburg are consistent with the changes and the recognition that's being given at the state as well as in the city of Columbus level to distinguish between those who are buying sexual services and those who are selling. And so what this change to the repeal and replace of 53308 does specifically, it is increasing the penalties for those who are buying, and by doing this, it's our belief and intent to curb that activity. And so what it does is it increases the penalty from potentially up to 60 days in jail to 180 days in jail, and increases mandatory minimum fines, and that can be enhanced with each separate occurrence in the event that they don't get the message the first time. And then with regards to the amendment of 53309, that helps to streamline that particularly ordinance to deal with those that are actually engaging in prostitution or loitering within the city of Reynoldsburg. These pieces of legislation, I think, go a long way in addressing the damage that's done on a human level to women, the exploitation of women who are essentially providing a demand. There's a demand that we need to address specifically on the buying side of this. And so by enhancing these penalties, hopefully we can deter that in the future and keep these activities out of Reynoldsburg for the safety of not just the women who engage in it, but also our citizens, and put an end to this. And again, I also want to say on behalf of the city attorney's office that the Reynoldsburg Police Department deserves a considerable amount of applause for their work in the 614 operation that was done recently. I believe we netted 18 or 19 individuals that were engaged in solicitation. And I will also say that it's going down to the city of Columbus court, to municipal court. We have been actively prosecuting those individuals that are participating in these activities. So on behalf of the city attorney's office, we would encourage the passage of these ordinances and their adoption. Thank you.
Excellent work, gentlemen. Do we have any this work on this legislation? Okay, I move that we.
Sorry, I apologize. I was trying to get to the unmute button.
Okay.
Thank you for all for bringing this. And it's, I guess, the state level passed something, then it's filtered to Columbus and to Reynoldsburg, and we're seeing this spread a lot. I think, unfortunately, the target has always been on the, as you said, on the supply side. And a lot of these individuals, whether they be men or women or LGBTQ, so many of them get caught up into that world and they are used and they end up paying the penalty and the punishment on this, and they can't get out of the system. What caused finally the awakening to try to flip it? Is it, and with that, will it be more difficult to enforce these laws? Will it be more difficult to, I hate to say catch, I don't know how often our police are able to do stings and procedures, but are these going to create a new set of challenges? And again, I'm just kind of trying to get a little bit more. I think it's great. I think that anything we can do to help and protect is a fantastic step. And I love to see the efforts of our community, but I'm just kind of interested to maybe share a little bit more if you can elaborate. And that's very open-ended. Any one of the three of you that might have some insight as to, what you see and think on that.
Well, I'll kick off, Councilman Codner. Obviously, this starts with my educational background and the topic of human trafficking that continuously came up year after year. Most people are very unaware that, believe it or not, Toledo, Ohio is actually one of the groundswells of human trafficking. And because of Columbus's proximity, because of the access to 70, 270, 71, there is a revolving door of that issue coming here. And again, as I mentioned before, former Councilman Cornelius McGrady did a great job of bringing that up there. For this one to get this particular piece of legislation is a great convergence of a number of things. It just happened to be that the conversation between the deputy chief and I just happened to wander about into this particular realm. And because of her experience and her familiarity with what went on in Columbus and what options they were going through there, allowed us to kind of use that experience to bring that legislation here. And like I said, it was a happy coincidence for a topic that is incredibly devastating to people. That's where my kind of force went with that. Once City Attorney Shook and Assistant City Attorney Darren Leese came on, it was like, why haven't we done this before? Why hasn't this ever happened before? And so I think what we're going to continue to do is see things like this with sharing resources and information between not only ourselves, but other communities that face these same issues. And what can we do to better combat that? In addition, the deputy chief mentioned earlier about the social worker that will be coming up. So for the people that are victims of human trafficking on the supply side of things, we are going to be able to have more resources at the disposal to get them the treatment that they need, to provide them the services to get them out of that environment and bring them into the light, so to speak, and out of that world that they have found themselves in through any number of reasons that are too far to explain in something like this. But that's where that kind of came from me. I think the deputy chief just got unlucky and had to sit with me for an hour about it. But it was a good conversation that led to some great things.
I think it was serendipitous, sir. So a little background from my perspective. My very good friend, Deputy Chief Jennifer Knight, was leading the work on trying to change the legislation. She'd been working on that for over a year with some of the council members in Columbus. And she told me that this was going to be proposed soon. And the first thing I thought was, we need to make ourselves unappealing. So I wanted to start talking about it with Mr. Shook, Mr. Least, and Mayor Begany and Chief Baker, because if they pass that legislation, anyone who doesn't have some sort of equal penalty will become a safe haven. And I don't want to see that for our city. So I'm very pleased that they felt the urgency and wanted to support it. The other thing that she and I talked about were in the research that she was doing, it became very obvious the disparity where the prostitutes or people that were supplying were being spending more time in jail and paying a lot more in fines than the people purchasing it. Usually a slap on the wrist and maybe a $74 fine as opposed to a few days in jail and a couple $100. So those were the things that led me was looking forward. We're risk managers basically in our positions. And I didn't want that to affect us negatively if someone else passed it. So thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Again, I appreciate elaboration on that and appreciate the work of everybody. I think it's extremely important. So thanks again for sharing more.
Yeah, I think also the existence of a specialized docket in the municipal court here in Franklin County is also a good resource that is going on. Attorney Shook, Attorney Least, are we planning on taking any potential cases like that and referring them to the catch court?
Well, I mean, thank you, Councilwoman Bryant. As you're right, the catch court is a resource specialized docket that's set up through Franklin County. Now, I don't, at this point in time, I don't know that there's any initiative to set anything up like that locally within the city, because all those resources are obviously available to us down at the county level. I will say this, that the catch court provides, I think, a tremendous opportunity for these women who have been engaging in the prostitution to get the help they need, whether it's mental health. There's a mental health component to that, which is oftentimes, I think, one of the one of the aspects that get the women into this area. The drugs, drug counseling is another aspect of it. And so as on behalf of the city of Reynoldsburg, and I think Chris could certainly speak to this as well, we have a desire to assist these women and steer them into the catch court rather than just simply prosecuting them and levying some sort of fine or jail time, suspended or otherwise. So the women who have the opportunity to engage in catch court, and we do, there are a couple of different levels of that. There's a kind of an introductory level for first-time offenders, and then there's a more involved level. It's about a year-long process in which there's a lot of accountability. There's repeat appearances in front of the judge, ongoing assessments, the mental health aspect, the drug counseling aspect, and if they can successfully complete that, then they can clear their record, as well as obviously receive the help that they need to avoid ongoing participation in that activity. And so we do actively steer them in that regard. But as far as locally, I think that there's so much involvement and there's so much, the program has been so successful that they have all the resources down in Franklin County. I think that it is our intent to steer those cases downtown and to get them engaged in catch court to eliminate repeat offenders and hopefully get these women back on their feet and become much more productive. So thank you.
Thanks, Counselor. I move that we forward this ordinance to council for a first reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Lawson Rowe. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to say thank you to Attorney Shook and Assistant Attorney Lease for doing this, and you too, Deputy Chief.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Chief, for bringing this to our city's attention. I think this is excellent. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? This motion carries, and it'll be forwarded to council for a first reading. Third item is an ordinance to amend section 533.09, soliciting and loitering of the codified ordinances of the city of Reynoldsburg. Are there any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation? All right, any further discussion from council? I move that we forward this ordinance to council for a first reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Council Member Pecorell. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for a first reading. As there is no further business before the Public Safety, Law, and Courts Committee, I return the meeting to President Jenkins.
Thank you. Our next report is from Public Service and Transportation Committee, Councilmember Strickland.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the Public Service and Transportation Committee meeting for April the 26th, 2021. Members in attendance are Councilmember Cotner, Councilmember Pacquiao, Councilmember Lawson Rowe, myself, and President Jenkins. Item number 1, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with EMHT for construction inspection services relating to the East Main Street Improvement Project, Phase 1. That's the Davidson Drive to Jackson Street. Director Dorman, would you like to speak upon this?
Yes, so this is an ordinance that was, we discussed last week. It was the awarding of the contract for the OPWC grant that we received last year. This is the Main Street improvements, which will involve the widening of the sidewalks, installing more of a median, and prohibiting turns onto right around that Jackson Street. street benches, sidewalk enhancements, streetscape enhancements, new traffic signals, all that we talked about. This is for the portion where our engineer is actually out there and they have a representative in the field that handles all the daily activities, back checks all the construction progress that's been made, including the amount of materials used, reconciling that at the end of the day with the contractor. But they also serve as a liaison between the business owners and the residents too while they're out there. So if questions arise, they can quickly answer them so they don't have to come down and hunt us down at City Hall to try and get some answers. This is for the inspection services contract for this project.
Thank you, Director Dorman. Are there any questions or comments from the committee on this legislation?
Got a question.
Yes, Councilmember Cotner.
Mr. Dorman, I know you were trying to get your words together, and I just want to clarify. You said something about prohibiting turns onto Jackson. Did I understand that correctly? Or what was?
I didn't mean Jackson. I'm sorry. It's right by Vic's Pizza there. We've had issues with the cars going in. If you know, before I came along, there was a Tesla I know that kind of was going down the street there and flew into Prosa's patio. Yeah, I'm sorry. I did not mean Jackson there.
Okay. So you're saying that, okay. Just making sure when you said prohibiting turns.
Yeah, I apologize.
Nope. Just wanted to clarify a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah, and since Mr. Cotton, thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Cotton, Councilmember Cotton. One thing we've also talked about too is, you know, as everyone's out there in particular now, and I appreciate everyone's patience and understanding dealing with all these construction projects that are out there. Columbia Gas is currently doing relocations. That's so the city can then move in and do our work. The storm sewer we need to do. They're moving their facilities and they're going to be relocating and doing 36 new services off that line. So that construction is probably going to be going on for a while. I mean, our project will last through the end of the year. And you're also seeing ODOT doing the paving work, as you see. So we appreciate everyone's patience and understanding as we kind of work through those projects.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee? Any questions from council? I move we forward this ordinance to council for a first reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lawson Rowe. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
I will abstain.
Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for a first reading. Item number 2, an ordinance authorizing the ordinance authorizing the appropriation of an additional salary funding for overtime for the water and sewer departments and declaring an emergency. Director Dorman.
Yes, so as we talked about a few months ago, our work is very seasonal and sometimes it's worse than other times. A few months ago, council approved the same type of appropriation for our street department for snow plowing. Well, this one is in regards to water line breaks. Typically during the springtime, when the ground begins to unthaw, what happens is any kind of little movement in that ground, we have pipes that are approaching 100 years old in some areas. It'll cause those pipes to fracture or break. Not this past weekend, but the weekend before that, we had 16 water breaks that our crews worked, and I'm not kidding, around the clock, probably 48 to 72 hours straight, from Thursday night, or I should say going into Friday morning around 3 a.m. all the way through Tuesday. So basically what has happened, unfortunately, what we do every year is we budget what we think will be enough overtime to get us through the year. Unfortunately, given those breaks, we're coming pretty close to expending all those funds, and we just want to make sure that moving forward, come fall and even through the rest of the year, that we have enough money in there to cover overtime.
Thank you, Director Dorman. Are there any questions or comments from the committee regarding this legislation? Any comments from council? I do have a question for you, Director Dorman. I see that we have this as an emergency.
Yes, my superintendent drafted that today. I think we can get by without the emergency. I don't know if Mr. Sisak's on the line there. What we're trying to work out the numbers right now to figure exactly where we are. The reason we or I think the reason he was doing that was because obviously we don't want to have a then and now, which is anytime we have money that's spent, but it's not in there when we go back to council, it just doesn't look good on our records, on our books, on the financial side. So we were trying to get it out there. I think he was just concerned that if we would get another weekend with those type of breaks, I wouldn't foresee that given temperatures are hopefully on the upswing. I think we can waive the emergency language. I don't think we need to have the emergency language in there. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
Director Dorman, it was set up as a 2-read emergency to allow for another council meeting. It was not a single read.
Okay. If council's okay with that, I mean, that would be fine, but I mean, we can also try the 3-read. Like I said, this time of year, we typically don't run into hopefully any more issues, but once again, I'm just trying to be ahead of the curve there in case we have another weekend like we did.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions? I move we forward this ordinance to council for a first reading. Is there a second?
I want to statement here. If it is not an emergency, then I would like to remove that emergency language from there and get it to 3 reads. If it is not like an emergency.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor.
Councilmember Peckrell, if you remove the emergency, then we'll have 3 reads in 30 days. So that's going to be over 11 weeks. And although today in talking with Director Hellman and Joni Crawford in the auditor's office, there are funds still in there, but those funds are limited.
And if we're going to do it, so versus 11 weeks, and we're going to do it in 4, right? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, council can make up its own mind, but I just wanted you to understand that that would be an 11-week period. And if Director Dorman thinks that's good and Auditor Sisak, that's fine, but just clarify.
No, I would hate to do a 1-read. I think a 2-read would be, appropriate, but obviously, like I said, I can't foresee the future. I wish I could, but we're just trying to be, once again, ahead of the curve, and that way the auditor's department doesn't get dinged for not having funds in there and obviously needing to pay the employees.
Council members and Chair Strickland, good evening. This would not ever be a then and now situation. There is enough funds in their account to make it through the next payroll. And it was introduced just today. So we really haven't had that much time to look into it. I believe this water supervisor was on vacation for 2 weeks and the emergency just happened. So, but there is not a problem or a condition that'll be a then and now. A 2-read emergency will be fine.
Thank you, Mr. Sisak. Appreciate that.
Anytime.
Thank you. Is there a second for the motion that's on the floor?
I second.
Second by Councilmember Pacquiao. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. This ordinance will be forwarded to council for a first reading. As there is no further business for the Public Service and Transportation Committee, I return the meeting back to you, President Jenkins.
Thank you. Next, we'll have our Finance and Administration Committee report. Councilmember Savati.
Thank you, President Jenkins. Thank you, President Jenkins, and good evening. This is the Finance and Administration Committee meeting for April 26, 2021. Members in attendance are Councilmember Baker, Councilmember Bryant, Councilmember Strickland, myself, and President Jenkins. The first order of business is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a consultation contract with Tischler Bice Incorporated to complete a feasibility report to determine the advisability of establishing impact fees in the city of Reynoldsburg and appropriating funds therefor. This legislation is back before the committee for any continued discussion and to hear any additional information staff may have compiled. So I'm now going to ask Auditor Sisak if he or he knows of anyone who has any additional information to provide on this.
President Jenkins and Councilman Salvati, Chair Salvati, I haven't had any phone calls from anyone to look at it further, but I would like it to stand for its first reading and to return to committee.
This
All
would
right.
be a second reading.
Right.
Oh, second reading. Thank you.
So is there anybody want to discuss it any further? All right. So then I'll just move we forward this ordinance to council for its second reading. Do I have a second? Second from Councilmember Baker. So all in, or any further discussion? No, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that ordinance will be forwarded to council for its second reading. Second item on the agenda for tonight is an ordinance to amend Chapter 167 Records Commission. And we're going to have Clerk Prasher talk about this one, I think.
Yes, thank you, Chair Salvati and Council. The Records Commission has been looking at reviewing and updating our records policy poster, records policy, and our records request form, which we did last year. But we came to find out there was a conflict in what our actual code said. So in doing some research, it was discovered, and it was in your packet, a copy of the code, and there was a page at the end that had scribbles on it that said, take this out. And it was never taken out. And I think it was because it was the transition period between your last clerk and the former clerk that it just got overlooked and missed. I believe, I'm going to quote from my head, 167.5, that whole section duplicates and was updated as part of the rest of the code, earlier portion of the code. Only the first two G and H on that back portion will be retained for the code, but we just need to eliminate what should have been eliminated in 2014.
Fantastic. Are there any questions or comments on this issue from the committee? All right, seeing none from council. All right. I move to forward this ordinance to council for its first reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Give this.
Second from
Councilmember
Councilmember Strickland. So any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, this ordinance will be forwarded to council for its first reading. There's no further business for the Finance and Administration Committee, so I return the meeting to President Jenkins.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda for emergency adoption. Items 9A and B are part of a consent agenda. These ordinances stand for emergency adoption unless someone wants to remove an item for further discussion. Council will move forward with a vote on these ordinances. Would the clerk please read items 9A and B?
A, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for the sale of real property located on Taylor Road to the West Licking Joint Fire District, said property consisting of 10.59 acres, and declaring an emergency. This is its second reading. Number B, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an intergovernmental working agreement with Franklin Soil and Water Conservation District to support the Big Walnut Watershed Coordinator Program administered by the Franklin Soil and Water Conservation District in coordination with and support from MORPSI and the state watershed programs with ODNR and the Ohio EPA, and declaring an emergency. And this ordinance had 3 readings.
May I have a motion to approve these ordinances?
So moved.
Councilmember Baker. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Savati, would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Savati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecorell,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Aye.
Councilmember Baker,
Aye.
and Councilmember Bryant.
Aye.
These ordinances are approved, 7 affirmative votes, no negative votes. Next, we have a consent agenda for a first reading. Items 10A through F are part of a consent agenda. These ordinances stand for a first reading unless someone wants to remove an item for further discussion. Council will move forward for a first reading. Would the clerk please read items 10A through F?
A, an ordinance authorizing the city auditor to remove equipment from the city's fixed asset list for the police department. An ordinance to repeal section 533.08, sexual exploitation of the codified ordinances of the city of Reynoldsburg, and replace with a new section 53308, sexual exploitation. C, an ordinance to amend section 53309, soliciting and loitering of the codified ordinances for the city of Reynoldsburg. D, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with EMH&T for construction inspection services related to the East Main Street Improvement Project, Phase 1, Davidson Drive to Jackson Street. E, an ordinance authorizing the appropriation of additional salary funding for overtime for the water and sewer departments. And F, an ordinance to amend Chapter 167 Records Commission of the codified ordinances for the city of Reynoldsburg.
These ordinances stand for a first reading. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda for a second reading. Items 11A through E are part of a consent agenda. These ordinances stand for a second reading. Unless someone wants to remove an item for further discussion, council will move forward for a second reading. Would the clerk please read items 11A through E?
A, an ordinance to amend, remove, and add various sections of Chapter 971 Municipal Parks in the Code of Ordinances for the City of Reynoldsburg, Ohio. B, an ordinance to establish Chapter 701 Landlord-Tenant Relations of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Reynoldsburg. C, an ordinance granting an easement to Ohio Bell Telephone Company, AT&T Ohio, for the placement of a small cell tower on 0.09 acres city-owned tract known as parcel number 060-000-215-00. D, an ordinance to establish the Reynoldsburg Adopt a Road program. And E, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a consultation contract with Tischler Bice Inc. to complete a feasibility report to determine the advisability of establishing impact fees in the city of Reynoldsburg and appropriating funds therefore.
These ordinances stand for a second reading. Next, we have consent agenda for a third reading. Items 12A through H are part of a consent agenda. These ordinances stand for a third reading and approval. Unless someone wants to remove any item for further discussion, council will move forward with a vote on these ordinances. Would the clerk please read items 12A?
Madam President,
Yes.
Councilmember Cotner?
Thank you. I would just like item the sidewalk program pulled out to vote individually on item F.
Okay.
Would the clerk please read items 12A through E and G and H?
Item A, an ordinance authorizing the city auditor to remove equipment from the city's fixed asset list for the Reynoldsburg Parks and Recreation Department. B, an ordinance of support for the city's participation in the Central Ohio Rapid 5 project to connect Central Ohio greenways and appropriating funds therefore. C, an ordinance appropriating funds from the unappropriated general funds to the police department for donated monies. D, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a lease agreement with Modern Office Methods for the copiers for the police department and waive competitive bidding. E, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Star Consultants, Inc. to conduct a needs assessment for the city's current public service and parks and recreation facilities. G, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an annual agreement with EMH&T for Geographical Information Systems, GIS, maintenance and support. And H, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a governmental aggregation program agreement with Volunteer Energy Services, Inc. to provide full requirements for retail natural gas and related administrative services to an aggregated group.
May I have a motion to approve these ordinances?
So moved.
Just
Would the clerk please call, do I need to have a first and a second or just?
No, you need to have a first and second. So
Okay,
Councilmember
I'm
Baker
sorry, I
gave a first.
apologize. May I
And
have a
Councilmember
motion to approve these ordinances? May I have a first? One person?
Councilmember Baker,
I was gonna give it to Councilwoman Strickland, but sure, I'll motion.
Okay, may I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Strickland,
Second.
would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Savati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecorell,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Aye.
Councilmember Baker,
Aye.
and Councilmember Bryant.
Aye.
Madam President, that was 7-0.
These ordinances are approved, 7 affirmative votes and no negative votes. Would the clerk please read item F?
12F is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to implement an annual sidewalk inspection, repair, and maintenance program.
May I have a motion to approve?
For any discussion, Madam President.
Is there any discussion on this on 12F?
I've got a question. Mr. Dorman, I guess one of the starting questions that I kind of had too, the legislation doesn't really define what would constitute repairs on sidewalk. And again, it's kind of can be quite subjective. Are we talking, is there going to be any guideline or structure to our contractors of what will require residents and businesses to repair the sidewalk?
Well, the city has a standard drawing which shows what the sidewalks should look like in a residential area, which we follow. In regards to you're asking for the criteria on what deems a panel necessary to fix. Is that what you're trying to ask? I'm sorry.
Yeah, a little bit. Again, that's just one of the questions that, we're talking about repair and or replacing.
Correct.
And I'm just
Yeah.
kind of, again, we're talking some areas that can be significantly old and, is it a cracked sidewalk? Is it a raised sidewalk? Is it crumbling? Are we talking curbs? I mean, just, what do our residents expect?
Yes. So when we go through, like I kind of mentioned this before, I can go a little more detail. So we have our inspector walk every single parcel, and we do an actual inspection sheet for every property. Anybody that has a sidewalk panel that needs fixed or repaired, we will show on a plan how many sidewalk panels are in front of their house and exactly which one it is. And we'll mark it in the field with paint. The paint washes away after a few months. The solution, it depends on what's wrong or what the type of distress is. If the panel is heaved, they can shave it. There's a company that comes in, basically they put a vertical saw on the sidewalk and they can shave the sidewalk to get it flush with the adjacent one. Or if it's sunken or settled, they can pump it. It's called slab jacking, where they drill a small hole and inject concrete in there to lift the panel up to match the other one. Now, there are extreme cases where we have, quite a few in the city, where it's just deteriorated to rubble or it's cracked, multiple times where it's just not fixable. And we do not allow small sections of the sidewalk because what happens is they just continue to crack and fail. You have to have a typical 4x4 piece for it to hold up. And then we also require that there's expansion material put in the panels if they're pouring a new panel. But there is a very, very thorough inspection report that's done on each panel, and the distress is noted, and corrective actions will be noted on there too, that if they choose to do it themselves, what needs to be done or what they can do. Once again, if the residents choose not to do that and just decide to go with the city's contractor, we'll perform the work. We'll give them the option to pay us directly, or we can then, if they choose to ultimately defer it, it'll be assessed to their property tax bill the following year.
And if the resident disagrees with the finding of the inspector, are they able to reach out to your office, or what rights?
Yeah, it's a great. In my past life, we will definitely set up meetings and we'll go out there. And there are times, it just depends. The cities I've worked with in the past had a fairly progressive program, so we were hitting the same areas every couple years. Obviously, since this is new to the city of Reynoldsburg, we probably won't be back in those areas, for another 10, 15 years, maybe. So it's important that we get the ones that are really bad fixed. However, if someone's on a corner lot and they have 8 or 9, and maybe one of the panels, and we try not to be too subjective though too, because obviously we try and use the same criteria for everybody. But if there's a panel that may be able to, get by another year, we'll work with them on that. But once again, if a code enforcement officer gets called because someone trips and falls the following year, then it's just, it defers to that then essentially. So.
And then, Mr. Luzader earlier was talking about new sidewalks, and he's mentioned before about, some of the homes that, have never had a sidewalk in their history here.
Correct.
Many homes like that. Are we then putting new sidewalks, requiring those residents to now put new sidewalks in? And how many of those do we expect?
Yeah, that was a great question, Mr. Luzader. I thought, as we've talked about it and touched upon in the past, MI Homes, the Spring Hill development's a good one to talk about. So on Wagner Road, they're actually building the entire leisure path in front of the development on Wagner Road, and they're also dedicating additional right-of-way to the city on some other properties where they've had to go through those properties to secure sanitary easements. And every home that's built in there now, when you build a home, traditionally, obviously, there's no fee for the sidewalk. It's just the maintenance that's the ORC calls for in the end. No one's forced to build a sidewalk if there's not one there, but once there is one there, you are required to maintain it. So MI Homes, all those homes will have a sidewalk in front of them. What we talked about too was probably another great piece to talk about is across from Glen Rest, the cemetery. Once that property develops, we will absolutely require that either a wide sidewalk of 6 to 8 feet or a leisure path is put in there to connect Main Street, hopefully all the way down to the Kroger, so people can walk, as Mr. Luzader said, from Taylor all the way to historic Reynoldsburg. Any new development that comes in, Mr. Bowser can probably speak, but we're in meetings always together, and we're always advocating that if there's any missing gaps, connectivity has to be done.
Yeah. So new developments, again, I think we've said that for a long time, that is a new development. You've got to put sidewalk in to the roads abutting. That makes sense. But you're saying then that the resident that does not have a sidewalk now is not going to be required to put one in?
No, not typically. No, that would typically be a city project that we would do in moving forward. For instance, on Graham Road, we're looking at putting that's our own property, but we're looking at putting a trail connecting down to 256. Typically, the initial install is in the city's right of way and typically is done either by a private entity or the city. It's the ownership at the end that then falls for the maintenance responsibilities.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Again, I get the maintenance part. I agree. I just wanted to clarify. I thought the way that this read, it said that if there was no sidewalks, that again we were then also requiring the sidewalk to be put in as well by the residents. So just wanted to clarify.
So if we'd run across a property where it was empty. I mean, so for instance, we do have very few lots in the city, what we call infill lots, where basically the entire subdivision has been built out except for a few properties, maybe 2 or 3. When they come to the city and pull a building permit, part of that building permit is they are required to put that sidewalk and connecting it from property corner to property corner. So,
sure. Okay. And then he brought up another point in his talking about areas, that are, we're doing sidewalks through Old Reynoldsburg, and putting all those new sidewalks in. That's being done then taxpayer expense, not individual expense. And so how do we kind of square those two, that city's paying for those, but not going to pay for, John Q. Public?
Correct. Given the city is doing that project and it is our desire to enhance that streetscape and increase the width of the sidewalk through that corridor, and that also involves planting trees, putting tree wells in, doing a decorative paver landscaping as well, we are burdening the cost of that. However, if we just left it the way it was and that sidewalk started to deteriorate, it would be the property owner's responsibility to replace it as was. But now that we're moving forward, anytime we do any of those enhanced type of streetscaping, the city takes the responsibility of that. That's above and beyond what would typically be required of a resident to do.
Okay. And so as all of Main Street is done this year and all the work going up there, are these sidewalks, are the other areas outside of Old Reynoldsburg going to be included into this too?
Are you referring to like the ODOT project?
Correct.
No, because they're not installing curbs. They're not affecting drainage. They are just touching pavement. If they were to go in and affect any curbs or anything like that, we would definitely have those discussions with them. But typically, ODOT, once again, highway, they don't typically do sidewalks. They're not required in most areas to do accessibility, standards, because there's no curb ramps or anything crossing there. If they do touch those, they are responsible for replacing them. But because they're not really improving the stormwater, adding curbs, adjusting the profile, they're basically just milling and putting exactly what's back in there. They're adjusting the street. I think, there could be some discussions like that, but typically not when you're dealing with another entity like ODOT. Have I ever seen that happen typically?
Right. Okay. Again, just wanted to clarify a few points for everyone that questions that have come up individually to me. So I just wanted to make sure. And then Auditor Sisak, the sidewalk fund, I haven't asked, we're okay, the dollars in that fund to cover this now if we have a lot that are going to do assessments, because we won't get that money back for a while. So is our sidewalk fund balance good?
Yes, Councilman Codner, the sidewalk fund is very healthy as long as it's a priming of the pump. So as long as it's replenished with money, it'll be fine.
Yep. Okay. Just wanted to,
Mr. Codner, I did want to add to that. If you look at the fees, what we're guesstimating, and we've done a pretty good preliminary investigation on these sidewalks. Out of all the streets we're doing, the total for the sidewalk repairs is just around, I think, $40,000 to $50,000. I don't even know if it's 50. I don't have that number in front of me, but it's a minuscule number. And when you divide that number over the a couple hundred of properties, I think, like we said, the most a property owner may have is a few $100s. $600, I think, would be the most or so on some of the corner lots. But a lot of properties have their sidewalks are fine, and they're not going to be asked to do anything. So
good. Yeah, good. Glad to hear that. Again, long term, I'm still, I think the project's okay. I still don't like our timing that, $600 still is going to be a lot to a resident if they're hit with that. That seems like a good number if that's the highest that anybody will have. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, and I appreciate that discussion. Like we said, we were discussing the water rates. The overtime that we just discussed a little while ago. The perfect example is what that money's used for. I mean, that increase in rates is designed so our crews can get out there and fix a repair within minutes, as opposed to waiting for Columbus to show up maybe 2 or 3 days later. But ultimately, I provide my suggestions and recommendations, and it's up to council to approve a direction to move forward with. So.
And that's it. Getting those people out and shutting the water off right away saves the city a lot of money. So I think that's a
exactly.
use of dollars, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam President, may I ask a question here?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Dorman, when it comes to notifying the residents regarding their sidewalk need to be repaired, do you have a time limit in place regarding, the response time from the resident?
Yes, so we have actually today, I believe I received the shared file with the inspection reports, and we will be sending out the cover letter and the report to those residents that are affected. They will have typically 30 days to notify us kind of how they would like to proceed. If they choose to, fix the sidewalk at their own accord and select their own contractor, they typically just have until we start work to do that, because once our contractor's out of there, we can't bring them back and maintain the same pricing typically. But there will be a series of letters. It'll typically be 2 to 3 letters that each property owner will see. The one will be the notification. There'll be a follow-up letter explaining the total cost. And then there'll be a third letter. And also that second letter will be an invoice. And then the third letter will be the notice for the assessment.
And we will work with our residents regarding any issues or, they may not have the funds now and the things of that nature. What does that process look like?
Well, when it comes to sidewalk program, that's why the assessment is an option that's given there. In these cities I've worked for with, before, same exact conditions kind of we're talking about tonight. There's some people that, are maybe struggling, and if they let us know that, they have about almost, 8 or 10 months to come up with the funds if they want to pay for it by themselves. If not, then it's assessed their property tax bill the following year over 2, billing periods. So it's just they'll see a small increase in their property tax bill for that 1 year, and after that it falls off.
Thank you, Director Dorman.
You're welcome.
I have a question. What about some of my neighbors that live behind me on the street behind our street? They had called me with concerns about the tree roots. If the sidewalk is needing replaced, what do you do about the roots that are there that are causing the problem? And whose responsibility is that? Or what's the cost that's involved with that?
Yeah, Madam President, I remember that. We dealt with that a few months ago with your neighbors, and they were, I think what they were trying to say was that the city planted the trees, but typically what happens is, and this will happen with MI, is you watch that MI subdivision develop over there on Spring Hill, MI will plant a lot of street trees. And what happens is when the project is done, those become the responsibility of the homeowners association. I'm assuming what happened years ago here, there were active homeowners associations. I think a lot of them are defunct now. The maintenance of those trees typically falls to the HOA when you're paying your annual fee of $100 or a couple $100. Those fees are used to typically, remove and replant dead trees, also your entry feature landscaping, anything around your ponds. The city, it's a little unique here. The city does not have any street trees in front of any residential homes. The only street trees that we maintain are the ones that were put in as part of the Main Street reconstruction project or that front our own city properties or parks. So when I was in Bexley, it was an arboretum. And we owned all the trees, the city did. So anytime a tree would cause a sidewalk issue, the city would bear that responsibility to fix it. Unfortunately here, we don't have any trees. The property owner can cut the trees down if they want to. There's no rules and regs that outline that, except what their HOA may deem. And that can solve the problem. But unfortunately, it is up to them to fix it if it's caused by tree roots.
So what would be the process? Would they have to have someone come out and dig up the tree and then have you or whoever they decide to fix the sidewalk? I mean, how would you address that to them as the homeowner? Would code enforcement come out and say, you need to remove this tree and then you need to fix the sidewalk? And then given, how much time would you give to remove the tree? And I don't know, I have no idea what the cost would be to remove the tree or the tree roots or whatever, but what would be that type of timeline to do that type of work?
Sure. Well, I'm a certified arborist, so I've dealt with this quite a bit in the past. We will never go out and ask someone to remove a tree. What the option is, they can take that sidewalk panel out, and this is Dublin years ago tried something with almost like a rubberized sidewalk material. The problem is the tree roots are going to continue to grow. So if you remove that sidewalk panel and put a new one in, most likely in a year or two, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to start popping or lifting again. What you can do, if you do it properly, depending on the tree, you can remove that sidewalk panel and do what they call root cutting. You can go down and cut that root out and put the sidewalk back in, and that will work typically. You can also install root barriers, which is basically like a long shield that you put on the sidewalk side that gets driven into the ground. It's about 18 inches deep. And when the root hits it, it actually deflects and grows downward. So it does not get up to the bottom of that sidewalk where it causes it to pop. Once again, very expensive options, but if you love your tree, it can be done. But we will never ask anyone to remove a tree. But unfortunately, the ingress and ingress through the property and the sidewalk, the path of travel has to be maintained. So it's either that, they remove the panel, do some tree, some root pruning, put it back, or they remove the tree entirely and just fix the sidewalk. Those are really the only two options that would come to mind in that situation.
Okay, and what type of timeline would they be given to do that? Because that's a little bit more extensive work and cost.
Correct. Well, we will fix the sidewalk panel. If they want to replace the tree or remove the tree, they can do that at any time. We're not going to wait for them to take the tree down before we fix the sidewalk panel. But if it's something they feel will be an ongoing issue, then yes, that would probably be the best thing. Typically, to remove a tree, most of the trees I've seen in the cities right away in those areas, they're 15, 25 feet tall. You're probably talking anywhere from $500 to $800 for a removal of that kind of tree.
So are you saying that the city would replace the panel, but the roots are in the way, so they would have to pay to have the roots removed, or is there a way to do that without it being an extra cost?
No, when we're doing that, we're typically going to be looking out there and doing some root pruning ourselves. We have myself and a few another arborists on the Parks Department that has been great to work with. If we have a question like that from our contractor, we'll go out and look at it and instruct them on how to cut the root and replace the sidewalk panel.
Okay.
But once again, that's not to say that another root may grow and cause the same issue, a year later. The tree will always be if it's in that location.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions?
I have a quick question for Director Dorman. This is a question that I saw from Facebook. I was just curious that if the city ends up doing the work, is there any type of a warranty period on the work for the homeowner?
Yes,
for the city?
that'll be the letter. Anytime we do a project, what we do is we require a bond. So when the contractor is done with our project, we sign off on the project, issue a final payment, but they are required to provide a 1-year maintenance bond with the city. At the end of the 1-year period, we go out and reinspect all the work they've done to make sure it's holding to a standard that we deem acceptable. If not, they're required to fix it. We'll create what we call a punch list. We'll mark up items that need to be removed and replaced, and they'll do that work at no cost.
Thank you, Director.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions? May I have a motion to approve this ordinance 12F?
I moved.
Councilmember Pacquiao, may I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Strickland, would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Savati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Nay.
Councilmember Baker,
Aye.
Councilmember Bryant. Oh, Councilmember Bryant? Councilmember Bryant, can you raise your hand? Maybe your audio's not coming through.
I'm sorry, I'm having a lot of trouble tonight.
Okay, so your vote on the sidewalk maintenance program?
Oh, I said aye. I
Okay.
guess you didn't
No,
hear
we
me.
didn't hear you.
Okay.
Madam President, that's 6-1.
These ordinances are approved with a 6 affirmative votes and 1 negative vote. Item 14 on the agenda is other council matters. Staff has requested that council reconsider ordinance 41-2021, an ordinance to transfer funds for the purchase of real properties to be used by the city of Reynoldsburg and declaring an emergency. I need a council member who voted in favor of this ordinance to make a motion to reconsider ordinance 41-2021.
I can move to reconsider.
May I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe, any discussion? Yes, Mayor Begany?
Yes, President Jenkins, thank you, members of council. This comes to you as kind of a
Mayor
misunderstanding.
Begany,
Oh, yes,
can we take the vote to reconsider and then have
absolutely.
discussion about the subject matter first?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have a second with Councilmember Lawson Rowe. And would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Savati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Aye.
Councilmember Baker,
Aye.
and Councilmember Bryant.
Aye.
Great. All right, the motion passed 7-0. The ordinance can be reconsidered.
Ordinance number 41-2021 to reconsider was passed 7-0. The ordinance may be discussed and reconsidered. Mayor Begany? Begany, please.
Again, apologize for my enthusiasm to discuss the topic again. This comes to you as a misunderstanding between who is responsible as far as how the payments go. As you know, the appraisals and the phase 1 environmental work that was done on the Happy Dragon was done under the purview of the development department. And we were under the impression that that if a phase 2 was needed, which ultimately it was, would still be coming out of the development department's budget. However, we were informed after council had passed the previous legislation that because, and Auditor Sisek can correct me if I'm wrong in the phrasing, but because this is now because it has passed council and because it is a specific project-based initiative, therefore those funds that would be used for either the purchase or any of the contingency funds would have to come from that specific fund and not the development director's budget that, again, we had money for. So that's why we are coming to you again to put the increase in for the limited phase 2 on the Happy Dragon. And if there is a potential for any limited phase 2 work at the PNC site. The reason why this is an incredibly important issue is because if there are any environmental concerns that arise from either of those 2 particular locations, we would no longer be interested in purchasing those properties, and therefore the deal would end at that point in time. So it's for the city's safety and the well-being of its financial future to make sure that these projects are evaluated by professionals all the way through at EMH&T to make sure that there are not any odd things lurking in the ground that we're unaware of. Again, the EMH&T did propose phase 1 work to be done at the Happy Dragon, or phase 2, limited phase 2 at the Happy Dragon, which we are hoping to get funding for this evening so we can get all of that taken care of prior to, and again, so we don't have to come back in the future, funding available if a phase 2 were to happen at the PNC Bank. We are not sure if that's going to be the case, but obviously if the phase 2 is not needed, the limited phase 2 is not needed at the PNC, that money would just be returned to the funds from which they were brought forth in the first place.
May I have a motion to amend ordinance 41-2021 to increase the appropriation by $30,000? May I have a motion by Councilmember Savati, or are you, okay, and a second by Councilmember Baker?
Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Would the
Go ahead.
clerk please call the roll to amend ordinance 41-2021?
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Savati, Councilmember Pecoro,
Aye.
Councilmember LaSapro,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner.
Nay.
That was a nay.
Correct.
Thank you. Councilmember Baker
Aye.
and Councilmember Bryant.
Aye.
Madam President, that amendment passed 6-1.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve ordinance 41-2021 as amended?
I'll make the motion, but I want to say something real quick because I got, and I'm sure Molly's going to make this available to the public as well. Email from Molly regarding what Mr. Luzader was talking about environmental issues with the Happy Dragon. And I was reading this through EMH&T, what they sent, which they did on March 26, 2021. So they did it today. And it says, I quote, let me pull it up, that there was no visible indications or any environmental issue associated with the current condition and or activities being conducted on the subject property, with the exception of the, was it fill bore holes? I guess there's some holes. The rusted pipe observed during the previous phase 1 ESH was not observed next to the gas meter during the current phase 1, blah, blah, blah. There were no visible indication and environmental issue associated with the current condition or activities being conducted on any of the adjacent properties. So what EMH&T is basically saying, there is no issue, environmental issue regarding this property, unless I read it wrong or reading it wrong. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
They don't anticipate anything, but to protect the city from any potential issues, they're going to, you mentioned the boring down, they're going to be digging down deeper. I don't know if it's 18 inches or something along the feet.
20 feet, sir. The last one was done in 77. It was 13.5 feet. What they don't want to do is have it, they want to go closer to the building. They want to pick different spots, and they just want to double check all the work that was previously done. So this is more of a check in the box. They don't think that anything's going to come up, but they want to make sure that they're covering themselves as well as the city if something were to come up after demolition happened.
Which is a good thing that they want to check, especially since, restaurant's been there for so many years. You want to make sure ain't nothing hazardous that's been in that ground. So
Better to be safe than sorry.
yeah. Okay. I just wanted to read that into the record, and the council members, it looked like the council members have gotten that, and I'm sure the public, it's available to the public as well.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So 2 questions. Number 1 is this one, to be very clear. This is only for the study, nothing other than a study. Is that right?
Correct.
So the second question is, suppose if it were to approved by EMS&T, and afterwards, if something were to be found, who is responsible? If they are responsible for the wrong finding, or again, we have to be responsible for again the next time?
So if they find something, we'll have a decision to make. It depends on what they find. If it's something that can be absolutely remediated, that's a conversation to be had with sort of the developer. If it's something so egregious, we'll just walk away from the deal. And at that point, that will have to follow along with that title, because that study has been done and that will be on the current property owner. But we would just walk away from the deal, and then the money would go back into the general fund where it was appropriated from.
I believe Councilman Pacquiao was referring to what happens if EMH&T says nothing is wrong, and then a year down the road, all of a sudden something is found out that there is an issue. Is that what you were asking, Councilman?
Yes, that's my question, yes.
I think City Attorney Shook would be better able to answer that particular question, but I would assume that
the likelihood of that is very, very slim. That's why they're digging further down to make sure that if anything were to happen, that they would find it first and foremost.
it's a good preventative issue. Absolutely.
If I may speak up, this is City Attorney Shook. If something were to show up on the Phase 2 environmental assessment that would frustrate the purpose for which the city was buying this property, that would be the reason for the city to back out of the deal. And we structured the purchase and sale agreement to give the city that kind of flexibility if that contingency should arise.
City Attorney Shook, this was more if the EMH&T comes back and there are no issues with the limited Phase 2, and then a year from now, something is discovered and that there is an issue that EMH&T missed, where does that responsibility lie? And if you don't know that, I understand right off the top of your head. That was what Councilman Pacquiao's question was more specific to.
Sure, that's going to be more of an EMH&T issue, but we're talking about a company that has a reputation for not making those kinds of mistakes.
Agreed.
Just a question to follow up. This is not just for the study. This is replacing the ordinance that was passed. So this is ordinance 41, 2021, doing a new ordinance. So this is not just this is adding the study in there. So it's not just appropriating money just for a study. This is duplicating what we did before, but adding the study into it. That'd be a more appropriate way, correct, Attorney Shook?
What you're doing is increasing the appropriation. You're increasing the amount of money that's being transferred from the general fund into the project fund. The prior ordinance that was passed actually allowed for broad expenditure of the money that had been appropriated, which would include not just the sale price, but these kinds of contingencies and inspections. The problem was that the money just wasn't enough that had previously been appropriated. So that's why this got brought back to increase the appropriation.
But yeah, it's not just a specific Phase 2 study. It's increasing the 2.6 to 2.6, whatever it is. So that's what this is, not just one small, hey, we're going to pay for a study. It's changing the whole. So we're revoting on the entire 1241, 2021.
Correct.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Molly, I believe we had a first motion
And we need
to
a
approve the ordinance, and now I need a second.
correct.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilmember Savati. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Strickland,
Aye.
Councilmember Savati,
Aye.
Councilmember Pecoriel,
Aye.
Councilmember Lawson Rowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Cotner,
Nay.
Councilmember Baker,
Aye.
and Councilmember Bryant.
Aye.
Madam President, that was a 6-1 vote.
These ordinances are approved as amended with 6 affirmative votes and 1 negative vote. Does anyone on council have any further business or items that they would like to discuss this evening?
Yes. I wanted just to talk about what we did last week and wants to bring this up to all the council member and the community. That we had a very successful Saturday, I believe, not Sunday, Saturday, and picking up the trash around the Reynoldsburg and in the Kroger parking lot here in Taylor, Maine. It's a good number of people, around 30 volunteers showed up. A very short amount of time, we were able to gather, I think, 30 bags of trash in a very small area in the stretch of that parking lot and the Taylor Road. I think Councilmember Sarvati, they went up there. I don't know how many bags they collected, but we were able to get that much from that small area alone. So I am seeing this quite a lot of trash. A lot of us are involving and picking up, but I think we need our community, all of us, to be more aware, more involved, and make our city beautiful. I think all of us together we can do. That's one thing which I want to bring this up. And the next thing is, Mayor Bagany, you brought a little bit, but I was able to ask that question, but I thought afterwards, not at that time. You brought the vaccine is coming up tomorrow in a city. So which vaccine is that? It is the J&J or Pfizer?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure because that was in a Facebook post. I found that one, but want to make all the members of the community aware that it's J&J's come back, it's reapproved, and it's one time. I personally found it easier. So just wanted to bring these two things up and make people aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any items they would like to discuss? Our next upcoming meeting, go ahead,
Madam,
Councilmember
I'm just
Baker.
gonna quickly say it because my internet's going in and out very badly. Can you hear me? Okay, my
Yes.
internet's going out really badly, so I'm just gonna say thank you to all the essential workers.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add? Our next upcoming meetings, there's a scheduled upcoming council, BZBA, and Planning Commission meetings. Council anticipates returning to in-person meetings beginning with the May 10th, 2021 meeting at 6:30 p.m. Unless there's no other further business, this meeting is adjourned and the time is now 8:59. Have a great evening, everyone.
Good night.